video, which is about planning out your vegetable plot, and I'm going to take you through a simple step-by-step process to plan out your vegetable plot this year. And I'm going to talk you through my own vegetable plan that I use and why I've put things where I have. So first of all, why would you make a plan? The one reason to plan out is to make the most of your space so you can see where there's going to be any gaps and you can really maximize the food that you can grow. Secondly, you can make sure that you order and sow the right amount of seeds. So it's really easy to over order seeds and get overexcited. This is going to save you money and stress by knowing what you can actually fit in. Thirdly, make it easy to remember what you're going to sow when, and this is going to avoid overwhelm. So in the growing season, it can get really, really busy. If you make all of your decisions now, then you can just look at that. So you don't have to make those little mini decisions all throughout the growing season. Just a caveat there, I never stick to my plan. I've been making a plan for my vegetable pot for about 20 years, and I don't think I've ever implemented the plan exactly how it is on paper, but I still do it and I still find it so useful because it gives you that basic structure to work from. Step number one, you check your seeds. If you don't have any seeds, you can miss this out. I get all of them out and I check the dates on them, just see what I've got left before ordering more. Secondly, write a wish list of what you want. So this is my wish list. And what I've done is I've starred the things that I want to prioritize growing. Thirdly, create a sketch of your bed. So whether you do this online or you do it on paper, you need to have some indication of your vegetable beds and the size and shape of them. So for years on my first allotment, we used to draw out a plan that was a bit like that. It was really, really rough. So that is sufficient. If you want to draw it a bit more accurately, especially useful if you have a smaller space, because you can be a bit more efficient with your space if you have a scale plan. One thing that I use is squared paper, this graph paper here. You don't have to do it, you can just do it on plain paper. On here, I've got the bigger squares, which is like 10 little squares, and those are 1 meter. So each tiny little square is 10 centimeters. Once you have this, you don't have to do it again. Make a photocopy of it, scan it in, and then next year you can just print it out again. Now I'm ready to put my plants on my plan. First of all, I've got nets on here. So 2 of my beds have nets on. I've tried to combine the plants that need to have a net, which for me is the brassicas and the alliums. That means that I'm putting all of those together, which makes it a bit simpler. And I'm also looking at putting in the bigger plants and the longer growing plants first, which is like the cabbage and the broccoli, sweet corn, squash, Maine potatoes. So looking at the aspect is really important as well. So this is north here. So the beans and peas, I grow the climbing ones, and they are to the north of these beds, roughly. So they're not going to shade out those beds. And same for in my garden, I've got the beans and peas at the back here. Now you might be wondering about crop rotation. So I don't rotate really strictly like I used to. Because I found that if you add really good soil every year, you don't need to. I've been growing some of these plants in the same space in my garden for years, and they're still thriving. Now I tend to have quite a diversity of things on the plot as well. I'm not growing a whole field of one thing. The other thing to put in, obviously, is if you have anything in your plot already growing. So I've got garlic in already, so I'm going to put that in first because it's already there, and the purple sprouting broccoli. So I'm going to talk you through some of the combinations that you can use in order to fit more in your space. So in my greenhouse, I have garlic here, which is growing over the winter. And I also have garlic on my allotment here outside. So the garlic is, I put in little sticks to show where my tomatoes are going to be. They're going to go in May. So the garlic is in over the winter, and there's also winter salads in there. And a couple of rows of garlic and some winter salads. So I've put these sticks in. So in May, I will put in my tomato plants, but they'll be really small. so they don't need loads of space. And then there'll be about a month's overlap while the garlic is finishing, and then once I pull the garlic out, the tomatoes will have space to grow big. The winter salad will be finished in about April time, so that will also be gone by the time the tomatoes are in there. And then when the tomatoes grow big in the end of the summer, what I do is I take off all the lower leaves, and then I plant in little winter salad plants all around the edge of them in August and September. And there's an overlap again, where the tomatoes are still in there for a couple of months, just ripening till about October, November, some years. But the winter salads are then growing steadily underneath and even cropping while the tomatoes are there. Another place I use this is in my veg bed at home. So I've got 2 big courgettes here. Now they grow massive, so you have to leave a big space between them, but they take a while to do that, and you don't put them in where I am until the middle of May. So in order to use that space around them, which would just be lying empty, and there is something as well, so there's a balance with this, but plants like to be growing with their friends together. They don't necessarily like to have these big empty wide spaces of soil between them, although there is a balance with that, because you don't want to cram too much in, otherwise they don't have enough nutrients and airflow to be healthy. But so what I've done here is I've thought about the timings. The courgettes are not going until May, so I'm going to put radish, spring onion and salads, and yet again I'll put a stick there to show where my courgettes are going to go, leave a bit of space around them. There will be a bit of an overlap, maybe the radishes will be finished by May, but the spring onions and the salad will probably still be around there. They'll just be finishing, there'll be a bit of an overlap, but by the time the courgettes get big in the middle of summer, most of these will have died off. And I might put herbs there. I normally put herbs there as well. So it's a way of overlapping and using the space a bit better. There's another combination here which I use, which is sweet corn and squash. So I grow the sweet corn a bit further apart than you normally would, just a little bit further apart. And then I grow 2 squash plants which will ramble around. So this is an example of putting things in together that require different parts of the space, because the sweet corn are quite tall and thin, and the squash rambles around the ground like that. So as long as you've got enough soil fertility, then you can put in combinations like that. Yeah, so with the timing of them, I've got my purple sprouting broccoli here, and then I've put an arrow to indicate that will be followed by my main potatoes, because they are going in about April, the middle of April. So the purple sprouting broccoli will be finished by then. Garlic will be followed by winter cabbage. Now I will have, so that's ready in about June, July, and then the winter cabbage will be the later one, which is ready over the winter. So that I will have these plug plants ready to go in June or July. And it's a really good practice to be looking and seeing when things are going to be finishing, and then thinking, oh, what can I put in afterwards, and have them ready as little baby plants if you can, because that minimizes the gap, especially if you're growing somewhere with a bit of a shorter growing season like the UK. So broad beans here were followed by purple sprouting broccoli and cauliflower. The same thing is I'll have those ready to go in once the broad beans are finished in about late June, early July. Early potatoes are also followed by leeks, fennel, kohlrabi and turnip. So some of these are direct sow, some of them like the leeks I will have ready to go in pots. I've grown my squash here over an archway. That means that I can fit in more squash plants, and they're using that space which is over the top of a pathway. So that's another thing that you can do. And so I can grow them 50 centimeters apart if I use that method, but I need to make sure that I've got lots of fertile soil in order to grow them vertically for them to have enough nutrition. So looking at the plant spacing here, this is, I actually rubbed this out to put on the plants. This is broccoli and cabbage here. So what I do is, I don't always do this, but this is useful if you're a beginner. So these broccolis are about 50
centimetres. They're not the massive ones. So these are quick Calibris, and I've drawn little circles here to show how many I can fit in. So this is where the squared paper makes it really useful. And if you do them in a kind of pattern like that, a staggered pattern, you can often fit more in. If you did them a square pattern, another option, for example, and just did it like that, then you'd have a row spare of just something you could fit under there, another plant. So that's a way that if you're growing them in pots like I am, you can actually count and be like, okay, I need 4 broccoli plants there, and I would actually grow 6 or 7 broccoli plants, because some of them might not grow. You always have some which don't germinate or don't grow, and then also you might get, some of them might get eaten. So it's always good to keep a couple aside on your seedling shelf, just in case. Once they get through the first couple of weeks, they tend to be fine. It's just when they're little baby seedlings. So I always grow a little bit extra. If it's useful for you to work out the exact row, the number of plants as well, for everything you can do. I don't do it for everything because I just do it intuitively. I tend to plan quite intuitively, but also when I've had gardens with other people, it's been really useful to know the exact plants, like in community gardens. And some people, you know, if you know that you're the type of person who likes to have quite an exact plan, then it's really good to do this. So you can get with peas, for example, I know I can fit a couple of rows in there, and what I've put in is I've actually put in plant space is 20 centimeters, and I actually grow them in a clump of 4, so that's why they need a bit of extra space between them. And the row space, RS, is 30 centimeters between them. And because I put that information there, that means when I go to plant them out, it's just really easy. I've already worked it out. So you can save yourself time by writing down information from the seed packet or whatever you're using to work out those spacings, and just write it all down. So when you go to your plot, you can just look at this picture and be like, okay, you know what to do. Some of these I will direct sow as well, like parsnip, for example. So I could just put like a DS there. Direct sow. If you are in the UK and you want to have a sowing calendar, then there's a link below where you can download my sowing calendar. It's for about average for the UK, it's about zone 8. So you do need to look at local information for what seeds you can sow when. Now you've got your plan, the next thing that you're going to do is order your seeds. I'm going to put some links to seed companies that I love in the UK, but look obviously for your own country if you're watching this from somewhere else. The final step that I would recommend is add them to some kind of calendar to remind you to sow them. So some people do this by putting their seeds in a box with each month, what you're going to sow each month. So you could have like March, and then put all the seeds you're going to sow March, April, you know, you can do it that way. Or you can simply just get a bit of paper, write out the months of the year, and then just write underneath it and stick it on your fridge, or stick it somewhere really obvious where you're going to see it all the time. The other thing you could do, if you've got a digital calendar or a paper calendar, you could actually put them into your calendar. So if you are a beginner, then keep it simple, just sow a few different varieties, and definitely take notes. If you can, take pictures. Always take pictures of everything. And if you can have a little notes app on your phone or write notes down, it's really helpful for following years if you've got a little record of what has worked and what you've liked. If you would like some help in creating your own personal plot plan, then do get in touch with me, because I do work with clients on a one-to-one basis, either online or in my local area in Leeds, and I help people create their own plot plans. So if it's a bit overwhelming, then please do get in touch and we can chat about doing that. And also please put your comments below. I would love to hear about what kind of plans that you make. If you put any pictures of your plans, I'd love to see them. And happy growing.